I'm Gina.
And I'm David.
And today we are going to talk to you about one of the most essential aspects of being an effective communicator during your presentations, which is your nonverbal delivery. All right, so we want to start out with an overview of where nonverbal delivery fits into the big picture of what we're talking about in this class. So up to this point, we've mostly been focusing on the strategic planning aspect of creating a presentation. We've talked about aim, analyzing your audience, identifying your intent, and making the most of your message. So now we're moving into talking more about implementation. How can we take our strategy and implement it and make an effective presentation? And that's where the particular topic we're going to be talking about is nonverbal delivery. You can see from the statistic here, which is taken from a pretty famous report, and it gets cited pretty frequently, that you say a lot more with your body, with your tone, and other nonverbal mechanisms of communication than you do just with the words coming out. And what we want you guys to walk away with today are what we think are the 5 keys to being an effective nonverbal communicator. To be aware of your body, to analyze your vocal traits, to rehearse and prepare your presentations, and to manage your nervousness. If you can do these 5 things effectively, then you'll be a very great nonverbal communicator. So let's start with being aware of your body. There are so many things that you do with your body. There are so many different parts of your body, and it's hard to sometimes keep track of what you're doing with them, and you may unconsciously do things that are distracting without realizing it. So let's start with your position and your movement, right? Are you positioned in a way that the entire audience can see you clearly? Are you sort of hunched over in a very defensive, unconfident sort of manner? Are you positioned somewhere bad, like behind the screen, partially covered up? Are you moving around too much? Are you pacing around and sort of making it hard to focus on what you're saying? Or are you just standing statue-like still, again, looking very scared and nervous? We also think about your hand and arm gestures. A lot of people, they don't know what to do with their hands, and so they usually default to either putting them behind their back like this, or putting them here, again, looking very statue-like, just very stiff and uncomfortable. Finally, think about your facial expressions. What am I doing with my face? Do I look like Oscar the Grouch? Do I look kind of angry and just unhappy to be here? Because again, if you do that, then it really hinders your ability to reach your audience. Now, in terms of how you can be aware of these various components of your bodily movements and use them effectively, the key thing we'll come back to over and over is you want to appear natural and conversational. One of the best pieces of advice I ever received was from one of Professor Smallwood's colleagues last semester, who said, you're having a conversation with your audience. You're not reading a script, you're not reading a dialogue, you're having a conversation. So just be natural. Do the natural things that you would in terms of how you stand. Just stand, legs shoulder width apart, hands in front of you, and open, confident pose. With your hands and arms, just imagine that you're talking to your friends. What would I do with my hands and arms if I were talking to you guys and I weren't standing up here presenting? And with your facial expressions, make eye contact. Look at your audience. Don't look at the floor. Have an expression on your face that says, I want to be here, I want to talk to you, and people will be receptive to that. Right. Now, in addition to what you're doing with your body, it's important to be aware of your voice as well. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it. And there are many different characteristics to your voice that are important to be aware of. You start with volume. Am I speaking to the entire audience, or am I speaking to the floor? Am I speaking to the front row, or to my friend over there? Right? When it comes to rate and inflection, am I just talking in a stream, just a monotone drab, I am a robot, I am up here to teach you, is that how I'm talking? Or am I talking naturally? Am I using things like pauses and changing my pitch in a way that makes what I'm saying flow? Am I enunciating my words clearly? Am I putting in a bunch of filler words like so, like, these things, especially the filler words, they'll really kill you in the professional environment. People will immediately lose a lot of respect for you, lose a lot of credibility if you don't keep that stuff under control. Now, the things we've been saying up to this point, the sort of suggestions we're giving in terms of, manage your voice, use your arms naturally, all these various things you can do with your body and voice to be an effective nonverbal communicator, they do come with the disclaimer with a couple of important disclaimers. First, that it is possible to overdo it. So don't overdo your nonverbal various nonverbal things that we're saying can be effective. And good nonverbal communication is not a substitute for good content, right? It won't cover up for the words coming out of your mouth sort of being meaningless. And we actually have a video that we want to share that sort of illustrates, how it's possible to go very over the top with nonverbal communication. It's from The Onion, for those of you all who are familiar with it. And so it's from The Onion, and it's from a series they do called Onion Talks. And these are supposed to be parodies of TED Talks. And TED Talks, again, they have a lot of merits, but one of the things they're criticized for is that the speakers often come off as very pompous and arrogant, and they talk in very unnatural, sort of weird ways that just sound very silly. And especially a lot of times when it doesn't fit with what they're saying. So we'll watch this, and as you watch it, I want you guys to look at this guy. Peter Garcia is his name in this video. Don't just focus on, the words he's saying are kind of nonsensical. Look at what he's doing with his body and think about the things we've talked about that are distracting and you shouldn't do. And think about how this guy sort of is caricaturing those behaviors.
The duck says, quack. The chicken says cluck. Quack, quack, says the duck. Cluck, cluck, says the chicken. Ducks come from an egg. Ducks like to swim in the water. Quack, quack. Chickens come from an egg. Chickens like dirt. Chickens do not like the water. So, why does the duck say quack? To talk to his duck friends. What does the cow say? The cow says, moo. The farmer is friends with all of the animals on the farm. The animals are friends with each other. So, how do we get our duck to cluck? How do we get our chickens to quack? That is up to you. Thank you.
So yes, that was supposed to sort of be a caricature, but if you're paying attention, he did a lot of the things that we said you really shouldn't do, right? We talked about excessive pausing. We talked about what he was doing with his hands. If you notice, he put them behind his back, put them in his pockets, did a lot of distracting things with them. So it's important, and at the end of the day, all the nonverbal stuff he was doing didn't take away from the fact that what he was saying was total gibberish. So just be aware of that. But at the end of the day, yes, nonverbal communication is important, but it's just a piece of the puzzle, right? Whatever you're saying has to make sense. It has to be meaningful. All right, now I'm going to hand it off to Gina, who's going to talk about rehearsing and preparing your presentation.
Okay, so when you practice your delivery, you want to make sure that you rehearse it so that you can be fully prepared for any kind of presentation, whether it's deck or online. You can have notes when you present, but make sure you don't write a novel. You don't want to have to read through a story and find out those key concepts to keep you concentrated and on track. You also want to be able to own your content, which doesn't mean having it memorized or scripted or anything. Just be confident, project, be sure of it, and so that everyone in the audience will believe what you're trying to tell them. Also, but just practice so you know how to use the things and you won't have that problem when you present. Time yourself. You don't want to ramble on and go on and on. People aren't going to want to pay attention to you anymore. But you also don't want to speed through it. You want to make sure you have time for questions, comments, concerns, and the lovely quiz at the end. You also want to rehearse with your slides. You want the people in the audience to see what you're saying. If they don't catch something that you said, or maybe you said it weird, they have something to look at to keep them on track. And there are going to be distractions, whether you like it or not, when you present. There's going to be someone in the back who's coughing, sneezing, maybe someone on their phone. The two different types of presentations are generally deaf and online. With deaf, they can be very wordy, so you want to make sure you have a clear opening and the main message to get your concept across. And in online presentations, you want to find out whether your audience sees you or they see the slides. If they see you, it's going to be kind of like Skype. They see your upper body. You have to enhance your movements, project your voice. And if it's the slides that they see, you want to make sure they're still connected. They're paying attention to what you're saying. Because they could just mute you and go visit their grandma in jail, or maybe lend something random. I don't know. But just make sure that the audience is paying attention to what you say. And practice. Now I'll pass it off to David.
Okay, so one main way you can refine your delivery is by making sure you manage your nervousness. You don't want to get up there and look too nervous. When you're in the audience and the presenter looks really uncomfortable, he looks nervous, it makes you kind of think he doesn't really know what he's talking about. It makes you not want to listen to him. So the number one thing you can really do about that is, like Dean was saying, practice, practice, practice. Make sure that there's no possibility of you not knowing what you're talking about. You have no reason to be nervous if you know the material. So when you actually give the presentation, the symptoms of your nervousness can be split into two sections, physical and mental. The first physical symptom we'll talk about is weak posing. So some people get up there, they stand like this, maybe they turn away from the audience a little bit. It makes you look cold, it makes you look uncomfortable, which again, kind of looks like you don't know what you're talking about. So what you can do about that is, before the presentation even starts, assume, like Arinda said, a open, confident pose, arms in front of you. Just make sure that you project confidence. Another symptom is tense muscles. When you're scared, when you're nervous, you tend to like lock up your joints a little bit. I actually, last semester, I saw a presentation and one of the girls in the group spent the entirety of the 20-minute presentation with her knees locked all the way back. And I don't know if any of you have tried that, but you will pass out. And that's what happened to her. And the whole class, we called the class, we all left so that it could help her out. It really obviously took away from the presentation. So what you can do is relax. And just saying relax, that's kind of useless. Relax specific muscles. Relax your legs, relax your shoulders, relax your arms. Make sure you're really relaxed. Another symptom is quick, shallow breathing. When you're nervous, that fight or flight response kicks in. You start breathing more shallow, you start breathing like more fast. And you might get in the middle of a sentence and realize you have no breath left. Again, that makes you a very ineffective presenter. So what you can do, take deep breaths through the whole presentation, between sentences, between slides, whenever you can. So now we can move on to mental. The two mental symptoms are actually very closely related. Like Arindam said, you don't want to fill your presentation with filler words. Don't throw in ums and likes between all your words. But at the same time, you want to think rationally about it. If you do happen to do that, mistakes happen. It's not going to completely derail your whole presentation if you throw in an on accident. Another common thing people do is they go into the presentation already thinking they're going to fail. They think worst case scenario, they're going to crash and burn, everyone's going to laugh at them. That is not a good mindset to have. You want to have a positive self-image. And again, practicing helps with that. You have good reason to be confident in yourself if you know that you know the material. So we also have some last minute tips right before the presentation. Get there early and connect with and befriend people in the audience who also get there early. Having friendly faces in the audience is very good for your confidence. Also, all presentations will have people who are paying attention and not paying attention. There are always going to be people who are falling asleep. Don't present to the people who are falling asleep. Present to the people who are actually paying attention. It's a good confidence booster when someone actually looks interested in what you're saying. So make sure you present to them. finally, and this is the one that's helped me the most, I used to suffer from a lot of nervousness presenting, but what I figured out was you always look and sound much better than you think you do. No one is going to be analyzing your mistakes nearly as harshly as you are. So in general, you're going to do great. So now I'll hand it off to Aridham to summarize the rest of the presentation.
So again, to wrap things up, we talked about nonverbal communication, which is an important part of implementing the strategy that you initially put together when you do the whole AIM process. The 5 things you want to be aware of are your body, your vocal traits, make sure you rehearse and prepare your presentation, and manage your nervousness. The key thing, again, in terms of what you want to aim for, the way you want to come off, is as natural and authentic as possible. And a really important thing to avoid doing that will really derail that is reading your slides or trying to memorize the script. If you're reading your slides, then people just aren't going to be paying attention to you. And again, the thing that Professor Smallwood's colleague told me is your audience can read. So there's no value in you reading for the audience. So don't read off your slides. It's very artificial and stiff. Also, don't memorize. You're not reading a script. Again, at the end of the day, the word that really stuck with me, the one that he used, is a conversation. You're just having a conversation with your audience. So just talk to them the same way that you would to your colleagues or to anyone else you're talking to. And finally, in the big picture, this is the implement part of the presentation process. And remember that at the end of the day, you strategize before you implement. So your strategy should drive the kind of nonverbal things you do. If you've identified that your audience is college students like us, then your nonverbals should be appropriately tailored to that. Maybe you need to put in a little bit more energy. Make sure that your content and your delivery is in a way that will engage them. Your visuals, your content, it should all be derived from whatever your strategy is. Strategy drives implementation. That's very important. And that's just the big picture of what we're doing in this class. All right, so that's the end. Any questions? Okay, so then we'll hand out the quiz.
Would one of you read the quiz questions for the video?
Sure, I'll read them out. So, question 1. When putting together a presentation, blank drives implementation. Question 2. Avoid blank or blank when presenting. Don't come across as stiff or artificial. Number 3. List an environmental factor that affects body position and movement. Number 4. Discuss one way in which Peter Garcia's nonverbal communication was inappropriate or inadequate for his presentation. So that's the video we watched. So just discuss one nonverbal thing that was sort of poor or lacking and how it could have been better. And then 5, list one physical symptom of nervousness and how to properly manage it.
Thank you.